Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. In light of the unprecedented impact of the global COVID-19 pandemic on the aviation industry, our national carrier Fiji Airways has announced a suspension schedule for 95% of its international flight routes. This is the most stringent scale back in the airline's 68-year history. Fiji Link domestic services will remain in effect, but may be adjusted depending on the demand. To continue to assist importers and exporters, Fiji Airways is actively seeking advance commitments to facilitate weekly freight service flights from Nandi, Los Angeles, Nandi, Sydney, and Nandi, Auckland. Those looking to take advantage of this service should contact Fiji Airways Head of Cargo Operations, Atil Narayan, by email at atil.narayan@fijiairways.com or phone at 9908-129. The suspension schedule on passenger travel will come into effect as follows. Fiji Airways will operate one Nandi-Sydney return service on Saturday 21st March, which is tomorrow, and Sunday 22nd March, and suspend the service after that. Nandi-Los Angeles return services will operate on Saturday 21st March, which is tomorrow, and Sunday 22nd March, and be suspended after the last Los Angeles Nandi flight returns to Fiji on the 24th of March. Fiji Airways will operate the last return Auckland Nandi service on Sunday 22nd March. The final South Pacific return services between Nandi or Suva and Nuku'alofa, Honiara and Funafuti will operate on Saturday 21 March, which is tomorrow again. Return services between Nandi and Brisbane, Melbourne, Christchurch, Wellington, Hong Kong, Tokyo or Narita, Apia, Tarawa, Christmas Island, Vavau, San Francisco and Honolulu are suspended immediately. Direct return services between Suva and Sydney, Auckland and Port Vila, along with services between Apia and Honolulu and Christmas Island, Honolulu, are also suspended with immediate effect. Twice weekly services between Singapore and Nandi will continue. This suspension schedule will remain in place through the end of May 2020, where further travel restrictions may be announced if deemed necessary. Fiji Airways will be contacting customers affected by the suspension schedule directly over the coming days. Anyone who, due to the stay-in-place order in place in the Lautoka confined area, will be unable to take their pre-scheduled flights, domestic or international, will not be charged fees or penalized. Fiji Airways is working closely with foreign embassies and governments to arrange for one-off repatriation flights to and from Sydney, Auckland, Los Angeles, Tokyo and Hong Kong to allow foreign nationals to safely return home and permit Fijian citizens living abroad to return to Fiji. All passengers, including all Fijians, arriving from overseas destinations, as announced by the Honourable Prime Minister yesterday, will be screened prior to boarding and medically checked on arrival to Fiji. Upon arrival, these passengers will be required to undergo 14 days of self-quarantine in line with the Fijian government's sweeping measures to prevent a large-scale outbreak of COVID-19 in Fiji. The repatriation flight schedule and booking options, of course, can be found on Fiji Airways' website. In light of the suspensions, Fiji Airways has announced they will be reassessing future staffing requirements. The Fijian government remains committed to ensuring that employees throughout the country who are impacted by the global COVID-19 economic and financial crisis have their rights upheld and best interests protected. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
So, excuse me, with regards to the suspension of flights, if you mentioned Fiji Airways is looking into the staffing issue, is there anything more concrete than that? Because it's only a matter of 2 or 3 days that the suspension comes in. It's a very immediate act.
The Fiji Airways, of course, will be giving details of that.
And with the suspension of these flights, of course, there's a larger issue of the future of the airline itself. What sort of a blow are we talking about financially?
Well, at this point in time, we've been having discussions with Fiji Airways for a number of weeks now, of course, because as you know that Fiji has been one of the few countries where COVID-19 arrived very much later on. And as it was announced by the Prime Minister yesterday. And of course, we have been gearing up because as we've seen throughout the world, many national carriers have gone under. This prediction by IATA that a number of airlines will actually have to close shop permanently. In our case, we believe that's not necessary for Fiji Airways. Fiji Airways, as you know, has been managed well. Of course, these are very dramatic times and indeed very demanding times, not just from a HR perspective, from a corporate governance perspective, but also from a financial perspective too. So Fiji Airways has a number of contingencies in place. The fact that it has been managed well over the past number of years has put it in a fairly reasonable position. So we do not necessarily believe that Fiji Airways will go under like perhaps some of the other airlines, and that will be able to manage it through. And I think this is the point in time where everybody, the management, the staff, the employees, employee organizations, government, and everybody needs to collaborate to ensure the survivability of our national carrier.
Is there some sort of assistance that the government is giving to Fiji Airways in this instance?
We're not giving any direct cash incentives, if that's what you're asking. No, not at this point in time in any case.
Will there be any employment packages from Fiji Airways as well as from the government?
I think in respect to Fiji Airways packages, you need to talk to Fiji Airways about that. And they will, of course, be able to give you a lot more detail regarding that.
So, this is the beginning of many job losses now?
Well, I think, as you know, that a number of countries, how they have dealt with it is that, for example, in New Zealand's case, the New Zealand government has actually stepped in and said that we will pay a certain amount of salaries for the employees who lose their jobs directly, or who are made redundant, or who perhaps cannot work for a period of time. In our case, obviously, we do not necessarily have the deep pockets like Australia and New Zealand, but we obviously are looking at coming up with certain arrangements that could, at least for an interim period, assist employees who are affected by this very dramatic turn of events globally.
Yesterday you mentioned that the government is having talks with FNPF on
Yes.
trying to help out these people who will be affected by
Yes.
COVID-19. Is there any concrete information that government has come up with FNPF?
No, we are still working through that. I mean, I think we need to obviously be, not make comments flippantly. I know you're all hungry for information all the time, but we don't want to give you information that's half-baked. We also want to be able to ensure that the information we do give you is based on solid data. Any assistance that is provided is sustainable. So, of course, that's all being worked out, and we are working very closely with FNPF. I mean, we have to be also mindful of people, for example, who are in the Lautoka confined area. There are some people, obviously, who are working in, for example, some factories in Lautoka that they cannot go to work. So they will also need some form of assistance too, and we're talking to FNPF about that.
So just going back to the issue of Fiji Airways, with the suspension of flights on the airport, a lot of the traffic was Fiji Airways. Other airlines which fly to Fiji have also announced that they're suspending services. What happens to Nadi International Airport?
Well, Nadi International Airport obviously won't be getting as many aircraft as it normally does. And of course the airport will have to roll with the situation. And we hope to also make some announcements in respect of Nadi Airport, in particular for those people who use Nadi Airport frequently. But you can expect some announcements in respect of that in the next few days.
Are you in a position to say whether the airport will remain open for the time being?
The airport will always have to be ready for any type of, eventuality of aircrafts arriving or leaving. I mean, as we've said in the announcement here, that we want to ensure that Fiji Airways is able to continue with freight services. There are many exporters, they export dalo, cassava, bindi, eggplant, all sorts of exports, Yangona to LA, They go on the flights to LA, so we want those freight services to continue. But as we've said that with many of the exporters, and we of course understand that they need that level of comfort, so they continue because we want the farmers who are producing those products to continue to do so, in particular those for the export market. Of course, the local consumption will continue to be there. And as we've said, because of the reduction in the number of flights or suspension, if, for example, we can have certain days where there's enough freight, then Fiji Airways can actually take the freight to Auckland, to Sydney, to LA. As you know that so far Fiji Airways has kept the Singapore route open. That gives us that connectivity to the outside world at least on twice a week basis, given the fact that Singapore has a fairly stringent measures in place. There has been no deaths in Singapore, notwithstanding the fact that they have had, I think at one point in time, over 500 people, but now it's been reduced to 200 people who have got COVID-19. And of course, that opens up the freight route to Asia and beyond. So we are keeping those freight options open, and we urge again our exporters that they please contact Fiji Airways. Again, I'd like to reiterate that the head of cargo is Atil Narayan. His phone number is 9908-129. Please get in touch with Atil. And as we mentioned the other day when we had the Fiji Chamber of Commerce meeting, that a couple of the exporters came to us and said, look, will the freight services be open? We said, look, should all get together and you can all agree. Said, okay, we'll all have our harvest ready, say for example on Thursday or Friday. So Fiji Airways knows exactly how many tons, and then everybody, when it comes on there, the freight charges, hopefully should remain the same, because obviously if you're going to send only half a ton to fly an aircraft, obviously it's going to be very, very costly to do that. It won't even cover, 1/10 of the price of the fuel. So this is why we're saying everybody needs to collaborate and work together and have certain days. When you have more freight you have on one flight, the better everybody is.
Have you factored in the impact it will have on the economy? Suspension of these flights means total blackout for tourism, we get 120,000 direct jobs.
Well, I think the point is that even before the suspension, the reality is that Australia and New Zealand closed their borders too. That's the reality. So even when we had kept our borders open, they've closed their borders. New Zealand, of course, has closed its airport. So it's not because of Fiji Airways suspending its flights, it's basically the other countries closing their borders. On the other hand, of course, USA now is on that list of countries because of the high medical risk of people coming through, so we don't allow Americans to come to Fiji at this point in time. And of course, we would rather that we do that than to have people coming in from a country where the infectious rate may be quite high. And then for all of you to get sick, all of us to get sick, which is the last thing we want. So it is a question about balancing the interests, and at the end of the day, preservation of life, preservation of health is far more important. And by the grace of God, hopefully this will go away very soon and that it won't actually spread. And this is why continuously we've been saying, as the Honourable Prime Minister has said, we need to take these precautionary measures. And people need to, for example, adhere to the confined area that's been created in Lautoka. There are some people coming up with some very, very silly excuses to go in and out. I don't think they realize the severity of the matter. So we ask everybody to take it in that stride, and we need to collaborate.
How long can we go on like this?
So how can we go on with what?
With the restrictions and...
Well, I think, again, as you know, that the matter turns on an hourly basis. You could, on an hourly basis, it can become positive too. But the reality of the matter is that we need to be able to ensure that we do what is expected of us, the correct thing that is expected of us at this point in time, and have a long-term goal. As we've continuously said, from an economic perspective, if you have a long-term goal, long-term vision, and prepare yourself, so when we do get out of the situation, you're best placed to take advantage of the windfall that will take place. Because you can imagine people who would be locked up for months now suddenly want to take a holiday. If you're not prepared for it, then obviously you won't be able to take advantage of that. So we've spoken, for example, today I had a meeting with some businesses that actually own some hotels. What they're thinking of doing is that during this period when they're going to close down the hotels, they want to do renovations. So some of their hotel properties were in fact due for renovation. So they said, we're going to take this advantage of this time and then renovate the hotel. So when it does get, the problem goes away, we are ready and with a better product.
Just going back to the repatriation flights, there are limited flights going on and coming back in. Do you anticipate that a lot of Fijians wanting to come back home may not be able to make it because of the short turnaround time? And if so, what is the government's advice to these people who may be overseas wanting to come home?
No, but as I said in the statement, these are the normal passenger flights that, and let me read out that part again. Fiji Airways is working closely with foreign embassies and governments to arrange for one-off repatriation flights to and from Sydney, Auckland, Los Angeles, Tokyo, and Hong Kong to allow foreign nationals to safely return home and permit Fijian citizens living abroad to return to Fiji. So obviously they can get in touch with our embassies if they want to come home. So for example, if we have some people who may be working in the Middle East and they want to come home, or some people working in in USA or working in UK or Australia, New Zealand, and wanting to come back home, once we get the numbers, then we can work closely with the embassies and the High Commission, the Fiji Airways will, and then they can have their one-off repatriation flights, which is separate to the flights that I had mentioned. Yeah.
You also mentioned that some resorts are talking about good renovations closing down. We haven't actually had some sort of statistics or figures about how many resorts are considering shutting down or closing down for the time being.
Yeah, I think it rose on a case-by-case basis. We are obviously getting some reports. I've had some conversations with some of the hotel operators today, and some of them are saying, of course, that they will shut down in a few weeks' time. Some of them are saying they'll shut down in next week, week after next, for a period of 2 months, and upon further assessment, then they'll make those announcements. So individual hotels are making their own decisions in that respect. Of course, because of the fact that there's been a low number of tourists turning up, they've gone down to, some of the staff have gone down to skeleton staff. So all that is currently being worked out, and like we said, it's a state of play. Again, I'd like to reiterate, there's Fiji Airways has also put this package together called Fiji Guarantee, and the Fiji Guarantee is actually a very attractive package where you have children can come to Fiji for free and get free meals. The adults pay for it. There's about 32 to 35 hotels participating in it. They can pay for it now, but they can take the holiday whenever. So they can if they pay for it now, and they can get to say at $1, the kids for free, food for free, and the kids' activities for free. And they say, okay, we'll come in October, but then come October, if they still can't come, they say we'll come in January next year. They can keep on deferring it as many times as they like, but there's no penalties. They don't have to pay any sort of any other extra fees for that. That obviously helps those properties that actually are able to sell those rooms and Fiji Airways to be able to get the cash up front, so to keep the cash flow. Also, as you know, that to answer your question further, that we've been talking to the banks. As you know, we've had now a couple of meetings, and we've also heard the Governor of the Reserve Bank announced the overnight interest rate has been decreased. We also understand that ANZ has also made an announcement in respect of the decrease in interest of 50 basis point. And we'll be also announcing in respect of some of the initiatives that will be undertaken too overall by the Banking Association in Fiji. If there are no further questions in relation to that, I'd also like to make some further announcements in respect of the telecom services by the two mobile phone companies. We have been talking obviously to the utility companies, and we'd like to thank them for the initiatives, and like to announce what Digicel is going to offer. From midnight tonight, all active Digicel prepaid and postpaid customers in all areas of Fiji will be provided with $50 worth of calls and SMSs to be used from Digicel number to Digicel, valid for the month of March. So that's free. Digicel has also removed the Credit Me, Credit You fee. So prepaid Digicel customers can now send credit to each other without any charges. That's also effective from midnight tonight. And Digicel will, of course, if you go to any government website from Monday, If you, for example, go to government Facebook page or go to any Ministry of Health or Education web page or Facebook page, you won't actually have to pay for the data cost in relation for you to access those sites. The Sky reconnection fee is removed for the next 6 weeks. So anybody that has had Sky before, but no longer have Sky, but now want to reconnect, there's a reconnection fee. Digicel is actually waiving that. So that's Digicel's announcement. In respect of Vodafone, and the specials that they've announced, they will be applicable from Monday. It won't be applicable from tonight. What Vodafone is offering is a $20 care plan free of charge for all prepaid customers. So you'll get $20 topped up every month for the next 3 months. So this special $20 bundle includes 2 GB of data, 200 minutes of voice call, and 1,000 SMSs. And is available via subscription once a month for the next 3 months, like I said. Okay. And again, they are saying any government sites that are visited by you, there's no cost or data. For their business customers, they will provide 30% free additional data across the board on all postpaid broadband and mobile internet connections for the next 3 months. So if you're a postpaid customer, you get 30% free additional data across the board on all postpaid broadband and mobile internet connections for the next 3 months. They will extend the due date for payment of all monthly postpaid accounts from 30 to 90 days, allowing businesses more time to pay their accounts. They will suspend connections that may not be required due to slowdown in business operations for up to 3 months without any additional fees and charges. So for example, normally if you are a business customer and you may have 100 phones with Vodafone and you have a plan, you have to pay for it up front. But if you now want to reduce that 100 phones to say 50 phones, under normal circumstances they charge you fees for that and charges. So if you want to reduce it because now obviously you have less staff, there won't be any fees and charges for that. They will also waive all downgrade and disconnection fees and charges for the next 3 months. They will also put in place special arrangement for customers from small to medium enterprises, the tourism sector, hospitality and airline industries to work on a case-by-case basis to provide additional support. So, hotels that are shutting down overnight, they may have a plan, and so then they can obviously work out details with them. So these are the initiatives that we put in place. We'd like to thank the mobile phone companies. We are currently also talking to Telecom and also Water Authority Fiji and also EFL to see what other initiatives they can put into place, and we obviously are encouraging them to do so to ensure that we ease the burden on all the customers throughout Fiji. So ladies and gentlemen, those are the announcements. Do you have any questions in respect of that?
So just if I may, the discussions we've had in relation to tourism, Fiji Airways, the restrictions in Lakota, all of these have had effects on individuals, employees and families. In recent days, a lot of people have been talking about social relief packages or incentives which the government could introduce. What would you tell these families, and how soon can they expect announcements? Maybe the supplementary budget would be the right place.
Yes, and please wait till next week for that. Thank you. Okay, any further questions? Do you think you have something?